Right now at 6, political victory lap.
When it came to the top of mind issues for Oregonians, legislators came together and they got the work done.
What Governor Kotek signed today and why she's holding off on enacting one big change for now. Plus,
the kids need to be safe in school.
A deadly shooting near a Salem high school prompts calls for adding security. New reaction to a proposal that could change the school landscape. And why American content creators are now pushing back on federal efforts to ban TikTok.
And it took a lot of work to get there, and I can't even imagine starting back at ground zero.
Thanks for joining us. I'm David Molko. We begin at 6 with Oregon's governor praising lawmakers for coming together to pass bills around top priorities, including housing, drug possession, and deflection. Though it turns out she's not quite ready to sign them all into law, at least not yet. Let's go live to Blair Best in Salem this evening. So Blair, what did the governor say?
Well, David, the governor had a hopeful tone today. She mentioned several times how encouraged she was at the progress made during this session. But for her, the focus, and as it has been since she took office, is housing production. Though she remains realistic around the housing bills that passed this year, she sees them as simply a starting point, but one she believes Oregonians have been waiting for. Outside the steps of the state library are signs of a pain felt across Oregon.
It's hell. It's pure hell.
Cold, tired, and wet.
There's just no help. People, I wish that the community and the homeless could come together and collaborate instead of it being us against them.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining me today.
Inside Thursday morning, Governor Tina Kotek attempts to instill confidence on what's being done to address this crisis.
At the top of my list for the session was housing production.
Last week marked the end of the short legislative session. Several bills passed around increasing housing supply and supporting shelter capacity, including $65 million to maintain emergency shelter and $41 million to prevent evictions.
As long as the money can get to where it's supposed to go, then that's good, but I'll believe it when I see it.
Here's the bottom line. We just have to make it easier for communities to build housing.
It's needed. It's badly needed.
More housing is the long-term solution for our homelessness crisis. But we also have to continue to forge ahead on meeting the needs of people who are living outside right now.
Like Sarah, homeless for 5 years and addicted to meth.
But I think in order for that to work, they have to mandate drug and alcohol treatment.
Perhaps the most anticipated and controversial bill of the session, HB 4002. It essentially revokes portions of Measure 110 and recriminalizes possession of hard drugs. Kotek plans to sign it.
The legislature's work this session is but one step in making sure we help Oregonians suffering from addiction while also ensuring community safety.
And I also have been in prison. I know that the prisons are full of people with drug crimes. Stop putting the drug addicts in prison. Get them help.
A key piece to that bill is setting up a deflection program, the option of sending people like Sarah to treatment instead of jail. Kotek says accountability will be critical here.
My expectation is that there will be appropriate guidelines and training for law enforcement to understand what is now different, what that means for deflection. I would hope that DAs are making appropriate choices.
Because you're not going to change anybody unless they want to. And usually it's the hard times that makes you want to.
Yeah, some interesting perspectives there. Blair, speaking of the bill that recriminalizes drug possession, why hasn't the governor signed it yet?
Well, the governor tells us today that she's creating a list of expectations for how communities will implement that deflection program. And it's a program she says will be an adjustment, especially for rural communities. Now, once she signs it, they have until September before that piece will go into effect. And I'll also add one more thing. Today, she said the legislature still hasn't given her all the bills yet. So it's pretty hard for her to sign something that she doesn't have. David?
That's an interesting tidbit there. Blair Best in Salem tonight. Thank you, Blair. In your headlines this evening, the superintendent of the Silver Falls School District has resigned amidst a growing financial crunch. District officials say Scott Drew stepped down at last night's board meeting. Drew had led the Silverton-based school district since the summer of 2020. Last month, district leaders revealed that it will be more than $800,000 in the red by the end of this school year and could reportedly have to take out an emergency loan just to make payroll. The board has named an interim superintendent to take over. In Washington, Governor Jay Inslee signed a bill today updating the state's hate crime law. The law now includes defacement of public property. This comes after Pride sidewalks were vandalized in Spokane in September and October. Now anyone who commits a hate crime on public property could be charged with a felony and face up to 5 years in jail, along with a $10,000 fine. Oregon's representatives and senators are pushing the Biden administration to declare the deadly January ice storms a major disaster that would free up federal money to help with the recovery. The storms resulted in at least 13 deaths, toppling trees that fell on homes and power lines and left some Oregonians without power for weeks. Now, Governor Tina Kotek and the Confederated Tribes of Siletz Indians submitted the request to FEMA yesterday. They estimate about $48 million are needed to help with lingering damage across 11 counties. New U.S. Census data shows that the Portland Metro's population decline is actually slowing. From July of 2022 to July of 2023, the population for a 7-county area, it's 5 in Oregon, 2 in Washington, fell by only about 900 people, or 0.03%. That's compared to a loss about 10 times greater in the year before that. Now, speaking of growth, Clark County grew the most, gaining more than 4,000 people. On the Oregon side, Multnomah County lost some 5,000. Washington County was down about 1,200. The metro population as a whole now stands at just over 2.5 million. And a traffic alert that could impact your Friday morning drive. Crews will be working hard on the Morrison Bridge from around 8 until noon. During that window, there's going to be several bridge lifts, each lasting for about 20 minutes. Multnomah County suggests using alternate routes like the Hawthorne or Burnside bridges, or to otherwise prepare for delays. Matt?
Thanks, David. Boy, what a day we had today, and we're just getting started. We hit 66 in Portland today, making it the warmest day of the year, and the warmest day, believe it or not, since the 5th of December when we hit 67 degrees. Around the state, we had 70s on the southern coast. We're going to see a lot more of those on the north coast and the valley as we beginning tomorrow and then going through the weekend. Still a little bit cooler on the east side, but everywhere will be warming up. We have many, many warmer days ahead. And in the 70s for several days to come. Now, these are the records. We didn't get close to our record today of 74, nor will we tomorrow or Saturday with 80. Oh, actually, we'll get close to that, but I think we'll stay in the mid 70s. But Sunday's high is 76, record high, and Monday of 71. Those are both in play. I'm forecasting a high of 76 on St. Patrick's Day, which would tie the record for the date. And Monday, I think we'll beat that record high of 71. Now, Sunday not only is St. Patrick's Day, it's the day of the Shamrock Run. The two don't always coincide, and of the 44 races since 1979, it's rained on over 60% of those. Not this year, and the warmest Shamrock Run day we've ever had was in 2007 when we hit 70. We should easily eclipse that, have the warmest day we've ever had for the Shamrock Run. In Portland, it's a beautiful 64 degrees right now. More of the warm weather a little bit later on, David.
Yeah, soaking up the sunshine. Thank you, Matt. Well, let us talk Decision 2024 and one of the most closely watched races on Oregon's May ballot. That is the battle for Multnomah County District Attorney, with incumbent Mike Schmidt facing an in-house challenge from one of his senior deputies, Nathan Vasquez. The two met this morning for their first debate, with Vasquez arguing that many of the Rose City's problems are because of a failure, he says, of his boss's policies. He blames Schmidt's support for Measure 110 as a reason why open fentanyl use has proliferated in Portland City Center, and also pointed to a fractured relationship between police and the DA's office. Now, while Schmidt acknowledged some challenges, he said he inherited many when he took office, and said when it comes to things like crime rates, his policies are actually helping.
He wants to pretend that every challenge in the world is my fault or some policy. He can't actually draw those lines. My strategy and my style is more like, all right, challenge, and then what did we do and what's the result? And so if it's gun violence and we're seeing that go down, still needs to go down more, and we're working on that. But if it's auto theft, we saw a spike, now it's going back down.
Both candidates support the recriminalization of drugs along with deflection programs. Vasquez also touched on his vision for the county if he takes Schmidt's seat.
We're going to see, an end to this feeling that we can walk down the street and just see person after person either overdosing or using fentanyl. You're going to have a DA that's going to work with our public safety partners to really bring forward meaningful change and to help people get into treatment.
The election is just over 2 months away, May 21st. Before that, you're going to have the chance to see the candidates debate live right here on KGW. That's going to be Thursday, May 2nd at 6:30 in the evening. We're also going to have much more from this debate. It's coming up tonight at 6:30 on The Story. The Salem-Keizer District is now considering adding metal detectors to high schools following a shooting near campus that killed a teenager and wounded 2 others. Sydney Dorner joins us live at South Salem High, which is near the site of last week's gunfire. So, Sydney, walk us through the plan here and what students think so far.
Absolutely, David. Students here at South Salem High School say they were surprised to hear gun violence is such a threat, but glad the district is being proactive. They say they believe the district, who told them in an email that these metal detectors would not slow them down when coming in and out of school. Now, Salem-Keizer Superintendent Andrea Castaneda says starting last fall, the district began exploring weapon detection systems as an additional layer of security for all high schools and middle schools. She originally planned to introduce the detectors in the spring or fall, but after the tragedy last week, thinks immediate action is necessary.
I feel like it's a right step towards the right idea. I feel like they're taking precaution. That's the most important thing.
Police say 2 large groups of teens were at Bush's Pasture Park when the shooting erupted last week. 16-year-old Jose Vasquez Valenzuela was killed. Another 16-year-old and 15-year-old were injured in the shooting. On Friday, the suspected shooter, who's also 16, turned himself into police. Now, Salem-Keizer schools are actually inviting in parents and students on March 22nd to look at these metal detectors they have been considering. In Salem, I'm Sydney Dorner. Back to you, David.
Thank you, Sydney. Let's take you to Silverton, where Legacy Silverton Medical Center is celebrating the completion of a big expansion, some 21,000 square feet, and mostly in its ER. But it's not just about size here, with the ER going from 12 to up to 20 beds. Legacy Health says it spent some $37 million to modernize medical care and to show its commitment to Silverton.
We're excited that in this new space, we'll have 20 patient rooms, which is an expansion from the 12 we had before. And we'll know that we can take care of patients in a private space in a state-of-the-art facility and make sure they get world-class care.
Well, the medical center has a new front entrance, a lobby, and for the very first time, a dedicated helipad for air ambulances. Before this, they had to land choppers in the parking lot. Straight ahead at 6, the flip side of lawmakers' efforts to ban TikTok in the U.S. You're going to hear from local content creators who say the move would really hurt their business. And coming up on The Story, a First Amendment showdown in Gladstone. The Story team taking a deep dive into why one mom is suing the school district. It's coming up at 6:30 only on The Story.